Hello, welcome back to Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. Today, I'm going to do your Friday edition of Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. I've been on a roll this week. I've done 3, 4, maybe 5 of these reviews. For a while, it was down to 1 a week, but I'm happy to be soldiering on through and getting down there to the last 20 or 30 stories before I complete the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. Today's story is Under the Pyramids, sometimes referred to as Imprisoned with the Pharaohs or Entombed with the Pharaohs. There's been several name changes. It was written in collaboration with Harry Houdini in 1924, and it was commissioned by the Weird Tales founder J.C. Henneberger because the magazine was in trouble, and they wanted to associate Houdini with the magazine to help increase the readership. The story was published in May, June, and July 1924 in Weird Tales. It was credited to Houdini, but later Lovecraft got his due credit in 1939. The tale is allegedly a fictionalized account of a real experience by Houdini, which I sort of believe. That's actually the case with a lot of Lovecraft stories where, he thinks of a particular place or a dream or something like that and then spins a more supernatural tale from the results. But the story takes place in 1910. Houdini and his wife are stopping over in Egypt on their way to Australia to do a performance tour. When they first arrive, he's a little bit shocked to see that at this point Egypt is already being a little bit commercialized, a little bit Europeanized and westernized. But he makes his way into the city, moves into the Arab quarter, and then eventually to the more ancient Egyptian scenery beyond. He meets a man who he describes looking like a pharaoh, and he hires him as a guide. They are taken out to Giza to see the pyramids and the Sphinx and all the legendary sites, but then that evening they return to their hotel, at which point Houdini decides to go out again and see the city by dusk. He goes with his guide. His guide gets into a bit of a scuffle with another citizen of the city, and they are challenged to a duel. The duel is to take place, apparently as a tradition, at the top of the pyramid, which has a flat top, and Houdini goes with them. But it quickly becomes clear that the whole thing was a bamboozle. It was basically a trick to lure Houdini out there to the middle of nowhere beyond help. Houdini, of course, has this reputation as an escape artist, and the assailants want to test that and to see, you're in ancient Egypt, buddy. There's strong magic here. Let's see what your magic really is made of. They bind him, they blindfold him, they gag him, they tie him to a rope, and then they lower him down to the bottom of a deep shaft. Houdini passes out, has dreams of ancient Egypt, imagines mummies and pharaohs. But eventually he awakens and begins to remember the events that led him to this point, including being lowered seemingly forever to the bottom of this shaft. So he believes that maybe he's really, really far down, beyond the earshot of anyone, beyond the tourist locations. These thoughts sort of make him pass out, and as he does, the rope begins to fall from above, and the rope actually, it's so impossibly long that he's buried in the rope. When he wakes up again, the rope is gone, not known by who took it away. But then he gets thinking again, well, maybe I'm close to the surface. And there's a lot of that going on in this story where it's about his perceptions. He's trying to reason out where he is in relation to the tourist locations that he knows about. But the implication is that maybe he has been slipped into some deeper, sort of unknown passage, not even explored by the archaeologist. The next time he wakes up, as I said, the rope is gone. He's still bound and gagged, and he uses his escape artist skills to get out of those bonds in no time. They are no match for his skills. But finally, freed on his feet, he pulls off the blindfold and he can see nothing. It is absolute black. But he feels a current of cold, sort of rank air, which he assumes is the exit, and he follows it. But after a while, he gets thinking, and he deduces that there's no way that the desert beyond smells like this, so I'm going in the wrong direction. This must lead to some deeper chamber, of rotting corpses. He turns around, but he trips, and briefly we snap forward to him waking up in a hospital, and everything seems like, pretty consistent. Yeah, you were shanghaied, and you were bound, and you had the right wounds and stuff like that. But this other stuff is probably impossible. But he knows there's something more going on here, so he backtracks in his storytelling, and tells us what happened before that last, before he turned around and fell. And he describes hearing chanting and going into this open chamber where this army of mummies, who are sort of what they call composite mummies, meaning they have like the heads of animals sewn onto the corpses of humans, and they're all being led by a pharaoh who looks like his guide. And of course, Pharaoh's with his queen, and they're actually making sacrifices to a god. And this god, this creature, finally pokes its way out of its hiding, and he sees that it is a 5-headed creature, but it's a 5-headed sphinx who was apparently the model for the Great Sphinx, but with the original face that we don't know about. The original face before the face of the pharaoh was placed over top of it. Houdini, he concludes that he survived, but he insists that it was all a dream. But was it really a dream? And is he really convinced that it was a dream? Or is he just telling us that? Is he telling himself that to try and maintain his sanity? And that's your story, guys, Under the Pyramids. As I was saying at the top of the episode, Weird Tales was in trouble. They wanted to associate themselves with Houdini in order to sell magazines. But apparently, Houdini liked Lovecraft's story so much that they later worked together and did other ghost-written tales. So it was quite a lucrative relationship for H.P. Lovecraft, who never made much money from his work in his lifetime. Negative is that, once again, Lovecraft resorts to the old, was it a dream? Was it real ending? But, that's really the weak point. The story itself, great mood setting. I mean, really, the way he sets up the descriptions of Egypt right down to the smells is masterful. I mean, you can even sort of smell, the cooking meat and the camel shit and and the dust and the sand from the desert. But it's also kind of interesting to see that he's writing in the 20s and 30s about a 1910 sort of a pre-World War I or World War I era Cairo, and he's already describing it as being quite westernized in many respects. So that's sort of interesting to see, because we talk about that all the time to this day about, American imperialism, ruining the atmosphere of other places. Well, it was nothing new really. And then I think if you take away all the supernatural elements of this story, it's still a great tale, and I think that's what sort of maybe the sign of a truly good horror fantasy story is if you take away the fantastic elements that still hold up, and it certainly does in this case. If you take away the mummies, it's still the story of a man who travels to a foreign place. He runs into trouble with some of the locals. He is basically robbed and put into a horrible situation, and then he uses his skills and his wits to get out of that situation. So you could adapt this tale in a number of different ways, and it would still be a good tale. So, all right, guys, Under the Pyramids, great little tale. A little bit longer than some of the other Lovecraft stories that I've been recently reading. It's about an hour and a half read if you're interested in doing it yourself. I think it's worth it. It's probably in the top 50% of the Lovecraft tales that I've read so far, so it's a decent one. There's some stinkers, there's some masterpieces, and this one falls somewhere in between. But yeah, I highly recommend it. the worst that happens is you lose an hour and a half of your life, right? If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll be back again soon with more reviews of the works of H.P. Lovecraft. So until next time, keep it creepy.